Hello everybody, this is David. I'm doing yet another video. This one relates to a subject that I've discussed on YouTube about 4, maybe 5 times. It relates to a home that I used to live in when I was very, very young in College Park, Georgia. And to this day, in 2017, I strongly believe the home is still haunted. I recently, to my surprise and just excitement, I saw pictures of the house inside. Somebody who works for a realtor posted pictures of the house, and I wanted to try to do kind of like comparison shots of how the house looked then in comparison to now, and try to give you a little more overview of what this story relates to if you've never seen it. The house was built in 1967, and I know because I was only a year old when we moved there, because we were one of the first families in this particular subdivision that bought a house there. And it was ironic to read all of these factoids about the house, because it said original date of construction 1967, and I was thinking, hey, I was already a year old. No wonder all I remember is that house, because I grew up there. And we have to go pretty much back to 1973. That's when my family went to a very small coastal island called Briar Island. And this is off the coast of Nova Scotia. And we met amongst other people, we met a cartoonist who was doing the Blondie cartoon series. He was an artist who was under contract to King Feature Syndicate to draw the cartoon for Chick Young, who was the original artist. He was dying at that time, and they contracted other artists to draw it. And so when we went there, I got the guy to give me an actual picture of Blondie's dog. And anyway, I don't know if I'll show it, but if I do, that's the picture that he drew for me. His name was Paul Fung, and shortly thereafter, my parents were allowed to go up to an old house on the hill, and this overlooked the entire town of Freeport. That's the city or the town, the village where Briar Island, it's like the county seat really, or if you call it that. They went into an old house on the hill, and they were told a story, which really was a story, about a mariner who lived there, and his wife had died. He had no children. He adopted one girl who I heard from afterwards. And anyway, in the house he had all these really old antique stuff, like these old kerosene sea lanterns. And anyway, the people we knew said, he's dead, you can take whatever you like. So we only took one sea lamp out of the house. Brought it back with us to College Park. That's where the house is located in Georgia. And about a year after we came back, we found out that some hippies had moved into the house, vagrants. They burned the whole place to the ground. There was nothing left. Nothing was salvaged from the home. It's gone, totally gone. And I would say probably a couple of weeks, maybe a month after we returned to College Park, odd things started happening in the house. One night we were sitting down in the den. We heard footsteps upstairs. And remember, we're the only owners of that house. There was nobody else ever who lived there. And as far as we know, the land was never owned by anybody else, as far as they didn't build another house there. So Father went upstairs and looked. There was nobody there. And so I think it happened a couple of nights after that, but everybody was really scared of what was happening. Why were we experiencing these things? The sea lamp was brought back in a cardboard box. And you know what it's like when you transport things by airplane. It's going to get broken, because we didn't pack it very well. We put it in the box and figured it's going to be broken when we get home. Absolutely pristine, not one chip in the lamp itself. And I think I'm showing you a picture of the lamp, or I did. Put the lamp upstairs in the hallway, and one night my mother was going up to get ready for bed, and she said I was stopped in my tracks by this very, very cold, dank feeling air current in front of her. And she said, I felt like I was underwater. That's how cold and wet I felt. And she said, I felt very strongly there was a presence in that hallway with her. And so that experience was basically a cold spot. If you know anything about paranormal activity, that's what it means. There was a ghost there. And then about a week or so later, we had a really bad thunderstorm one night. And I was about 7 years old, so I ran in to sleep with my parents. And their room was right next to the hallway. And they always left the door open. So I'm in bed, and I'm asleep, and I'm right there in the middle of both of them. I wake up, and I feel like, something's happening. I don't know what. So I look over to my left towards the hallway door. And there was a figure that moved slowly into my view. It was palish white. It was indistinct. I mean, you could see features, but you couldn't make out any clear image. I made out a captain's hat on its head, 2 black eye sockets for eyes, a nose, a black spot for a nose. I could make out something like a mouth, a head. In other words, it looked human. And this figure floated into view in the doorway of my parents' room, and then it stopped. And when it did, it turned its head and it looked straight at me. And honestly, at 7 years old, you think, oh my gosh, you're terrified. I was not terrified. I didn't feel terrified at all. I just wanted so much to get out of that bed and try to communicate or do something. But people have said when you see a ghost, you usually have no ability to move. And that is absolutely right. I could not get out of bed. I was pinned down in that bed. I don't know from what, that the ghost or whatever the spirit was trying to communicate with me, but you couldn't get out and get any closer to speak to him. Who was this ghost? Well, I strongly believe even today, when this man died in the house in Nova Scotia, his spirit was not at rest, because they say he died in the house, but that's not true. He died in a hospital in Digby, Nova Scotia. And when we went to the house, all of his personal belongings were left there because his wife had already died, so there was nobody else there. The daughter had grown up, so she had left the house, and so we think his spirit came back in that lamp. And so I looked at his spirit. His name was Carmen Nass, N-A-S-E. That was his name as a mariner. And I pinched myself. I thought, if I'm dreaming this and I pinch myself, I'm not gonna feel pain. So I pinched myself as hard as I could, and I said, "Oh, it hurts." So I knew I wasn't dreaming. By the time I did that, I thought, well, I need to wake my parents up so they can see this. And I couldn't. I never could get them to wake up. So I looked over at the doorway. I wanted to see what's it doing. Now, by this point, it had turned its head, and it started very slowly floating down the hallway. And when I lost view of it through the door, that's the last time I saw it. I never saw it again. And those 3 experiences in the house, they cannot be verifiable as having ever happened again. Then 25 years later, I went up to the house. The people that live there is a black couple. And they're so arrogant about everything. They won't allow anybody to see the house inside. This arrogant attitude even erupted beyond it just being that they didn't want me to see anything in the house. The result of it was I lost all relationships with my aunt, who lived on the street. She lived down the street, and she acted as though I was saying the most heinous thing to ask for permission to see the house inside. And we haven't spoken since, and that's been 10 years since then, or even longer, really. But I have tried to make up with her, but she still won't have anything to do with me. This black family, as far as I know, still lives there. And but anyway, to get to this point, I went by the house, and from the street, I had a 110 camera, and I took a photograph of the house. I figured I'll just get a picture of it. I got home and had it developed, and there was a figure in the upstairs front bathroom of the house. And I've had it blown up, and I've had it digitally enhanced to make out features of this figure. And I still strongly believe his spirit is still in that house. Now, why would the blacks not want to talk about it? I don't know why, but he's still there. I'm pretty much absolutely positive that because we left the house meant that possibly he was happy. He didn't come with us in the lamp because we still have it. I've never had that experience any other place we've had that lamp, only in that house. And to this day, the black family will still not talk about it. They still will not allow anybody to discuss it. I mean, yeah, you want your privacy and everything else, but here I have a question for you. They value their privacy so much, why did I find those photographs of the interior of the house on a realtor's webpage? Because I was just ecstatic. I was like, I always wanted to see, what did they do to the house? What did they change or modify? You know, maybe all of that change and the work and all that stuff, maybe it disrupted or actually it made Carmen Nass's spirit unhappy, or maybe it made him angry that they were doing things to the house because he was already there. From what I can tell, they really didn't change anything. They changed wallpaper, they changed some of the partitions in the kitchen, they changed like the cabinets, the table, and some other things that were there, but pretty much it's all still the same way that it was when we lived in the house. That's why I wanted to show you comparisons, so you could see that whatever the spirit is upset about, if it's making itself known to me, it's meaning I'm still here, I'm not gone, I'm still in the house. And that's why I wanted to appear to you in that photograph. I'm saying I'm still here, I'm not gone, I'm still here in this house. Does that mean that they are experiencing odd things like I did? Don't know, because they won't talk about it. That's how arrogant they are. They just won't discuss it with anybody. So I figured, here's my chance finally. I can show pictures and discuss it while I'm actually doing it, because every video I've done so far has just been me talking about it through the video, like texting or typing out stuff on there so you could see it. And in the last 3 years, I have seen another ghost image in the front doorway of the, we have a storm door that we put up at the front of the house, and I enhanced it, and it looks to be two humanoid faces. There's a small child, a girl, who had pigtails, and their faces are green. Okay, that's why you can't really make it out. Maybe I'm putting that up here too. The other figure is a human being. It's a man figure because he has a hairline in his hair, and there's one side of his face, one of his eyes is red. What does that mean? I don't know. But maybe because the house is already occupied by one spirit, there could be other spirits that are drawn to homes like that. I don't know. I'm not a parapsychologist. But I am fascinated to know, how can we put peace to this man? How can we bring him out of that house, and the other spirits too, and let him pass on and move on to wherever, you know, God wants him to be? Because if he's still in that house, he'll never be satisfied. He'll never be happy. And to this day, I have not been able to figure out how to get this black family to understand that, and to say, if y'all having these problems, you ought to try and do something, you know? Find somebody, find a priest, find some parapsychologist who can look in the house and find out. They won't talk about it. And this aunt that I was talking about, she's really not my aunt anymore. My uncle died and she remarried. But